Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert.
And Ryan.
And today we will be discussing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
The latest Marvel movie hitting the theater. It's exciting end of summer, big tentpole movie.
Yep. Pretty excellent. So,
first impressions?
Hop right into it. We both gave a letter grade to this before being on the podcast, and it was A-.
Yeah, and I stick by that.
Yep. I saw it twice, and I feel the same after the first and second time seeing it. It was, I mean, there are some things that I can maybe point out or say that prevent me from going full A+ amazing, but this was a good film that I enjoyed and just, thoroughly liked it.
I actually find it interesting that you went and saw it more than once now that I think about it, because my reaction to seeing that movie was, this is a movie I would actually probably seek out to watch again, which is not something that I can say for even every Marvel movie. Like, there are some Marvel movies where I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. That was the last time I'll watch that.
I can understand that feeling. They're definitely, when it comes with Marvel movies, they're all really good and I enjoy them. But yeah, I feel the same about some of them where I'm like, I'd have no interest to actually watch this another time. But yeah, this was a movie where I watched it the first time and to be honest, like, I sort of fell asleep at one small part in it because I was a little tired, and normally I'd be like, no, don't fall asleep. We're watching the movie. But I knew I was going to watch it a second time because I'd already basically planned to. And I was fine with it, but it's, I mean, it's just a good movie. Like, it really is something I would sit down and just watch this again. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it again. I don't think I'd see it another time in the theaters. But if somebody, downloaded on Disney Plus or whatever, or bought the DVD and we were sitting at their house and they just put it on, I'd be like, yeah, cool, this is a good movie. Like, let's watch it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, good movie. Like, would recommend. Please go see in theaters. I mean, not to say like Disney needs any more support necessarily, but like,
this kind of Disney movie deserves more support.
Yeah. And we're seeing theaters. It is. I mean, it's. I like going to the theaters just in general for the experience, but not every movie is made better by the theater experience necessarily. But this movie is. Like, there's big, cool action scenes and things that are immense, and seeing it in the theater makes it feel more immense. So actually, like, worth seeing in the theater.
Also, if you have not seen it yet and you're listening to this, please go see it. We will be talking about the whole movie, so go watch it if you haven't yet.
Yeah, what are you doing here, you knucklehead? Like, don't listen to a podcast about it without watching it.
You knucklehead.
Yeah, well, you've been warned. So we'll basically get into a recap and then get into our little talking points or whatever about it. So here we go. So the story starts essentially explaining some, kind of the progenation. I don't know, like the like where it all starts. It kind of starts talking about the 10 rings and how, I mean, in the movie, what is he referred to except as, like, we know that his name is Wenwu, right?
Zhu Wenwu.
Yeah, his name is Wenwu, but he's also known as the Mandarin in other things. I'm just going to use Wenwu. So Wenwu, 1,000 years ago, somehow, by which they do not say specifically, they say, oh, there's rumors it happened this way and there's rumors it happened that way, came into possession of the 10 rings, right? These rings give him powers, which it's not like laid out specifically what the powers are, but it's clearly like the ability to manipulate them and, create great amount of force from them, and manipulate yourself around them as well. So like, he can, shoot out blasts with them. He can fire the rings out and they impel power and kind of create a blast of sorts. And he can, shoot them at the ground and shoot himself into the air, not quite flying, but like super jumping essentially. And he can create sort of a shield and force field around himself by spinning them around him. So we see some of the powers kind of, but it's never said specifically what they do.
Wikipedia describes the weapons granting him immortality and godly powers.
Yeah.
So godly powers.
Yeah. Which is like, godly powers is like a stretch. I mean, yet certainly it is like greater than a man's powers. I mean, I guess to a simplified view, it is a godly like power, But it doesn't seem. I mean, okay. Here's the thing: we're in Marvel, right? So when you talk about godly powers, like you need to give me a little more than I can shoot rings and things and kind of do a super jump. Like I need fly invulnerable.
He could break the seal, keeping out like the monster at the end with the 10 rings.
Yeah. So hey, again, spoiler there, but you already know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I don't know. It says godly powers, and that's fine. It does immortality, right? So he has not aged since the time he found the rings, over the 1,000 years. With these rings, you see kind of a couple like historical, like a sort of a flash forward, and he uses it to dominate and just have this organization that is very powerful and essentially evil. His focus is power, not by whatever means he wants. And at one point, he hears a legend about a place called Talo where, he can find, the power of the gods there, which is why I'm like, doesn't he have godly powers? He's seeking out more power, whatever. Typical like evilish villain guy. Like, I just want to have power for the power's sake. And he tries to go to that place and is sort of prevented and because of Magic Forest, and meets a woman there. And that woman, they get into a battle, and the battle is, very choreographed, and it's like a dance. And we get this feeling like, it's man and woman and they're kind of falling for each other thing. And they do. They fall for each other. She leaves her village and basically joins him. He gets rid of let's go of his organization to raise a child.
I actually just want to go back to the dance fight scene. I think that's the point in the movie, watching it the first time, where I was like, oh, this is going to be a good movie.
Yeah, it's just like a well done scene. Where it's just like really beautiful to behold, and the choreography is done really well. And I'm pretty sure that like it looks as if these actors are doing their own stunts, at least for some degree. So that's kind of cool.
And there is like a bit of like the wire work and stuff, which but it's like done very well and gracefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The woman also exhibits kind of some powers as well, and she exhibits the ability to interact with the rings, and like absorb and
redirect.
She's doing very like kind of like not quite like a judo tai chi, like using his own power against him. His movements are very forceful and like direct, and hers are all like really just redirecting everything that he's doing. And you see how these things kind of match together and neutralize, and she's able to literally neutralize him being able to defeat her. They fall in love. They sort of escape from both of their lives and go to try and have a separate life on their own. And they have Shang-Chi and his sister. And I'm trying to remember, and we get like that up to this point. It's the mother telling this story to her children. Like, this is the legend of your father and how we came to know each other and everything. I'm almost kind of forgetting exactly what the transition is here, but some point here, we kind of get a transition over to, we have Shang-Chi in a present day, which is, post snap, Earth in the Marvel universe. So that has occurred. It's referenced. I think that it happens at some point. And we get him, he just wakes up and, he wakes up. Oh, sorry. She gives him a necklace specifically. That is part of the thing. She gives him a necklace, says you can always find your way home with this. And then we get him snapping, forward. He's an adult now. Gets up, wakes up in the morning, does a bunch of push-ups, goes to his job as a valet, which is kind of like, okay, well, we already kind of knew he was supposed to be like a hero. Why is he a valet? Then you were getting the point, like he's living some kind of humble existence. And him and his friend Katie, basically are just valets, and Katie's like some kind of she loves driving. She's like a speed racer. She's like, oh, we got this nice car, let's go take it out for a drive.
Played by Awkwafina,
Awkwafina, whatever. So they go for a joyride, and then they finish up their shift, and they go meet one of their friends, and they're talking about they're telling like a story to her and everything, and sort of during this conversation, their friend kind of they're talking about how they met, right? We're getting a little bit of how did these two know each other, and they've known each other for 10 years. And they say, oh, your girlfriend used to be, she was in that car with us. And they get this idea, like, your girlfriend used to be wild. Why aren't you anymore? She's like, well, some of us had to grow up. So she makes this imposition a little bit like, some of us got to grow up, kind of saying a little slight against them, Like, you guys are still, you guys have a lot of potential, but you aren't realizing it. You are still just doing like a lower end job. You could be doing something more than what you're doing. You're both smarter and more capable than this. And we get this little, like, just a little hint at that. We got that. We get a little hint at there's more to Shang-Chi, obviously. And we kind of already know that, but the movie is sort of reiterating it. After that, they're like, oh, they're like, let's, we could just go home, and they go to a karaoke bar, which is like just a cool, fun scene of them singing some songs that all of us love to hear. Specifically some Disney songs, like Under the Sea, I think, or
A Whole New World.
A Whole New World. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Mermaid song is what I was getting at. They play a couple songs at karaoke, and then, they pass out or whatever. And next day, Shang-Chi heads, who goes by Sean, right? We know that his name is Shang-Chi, but he's Sean at this time. In America, his name is Sean. He goes over to meet Katie so that they can go to their shift, has a little interaction with their parents. And again, we're getting a little more background on Katie and them and kind of the nature of their relationship a little bit, where, his grandma's like, oh, don't, like, when are you getting married? And she's like, oh, have you, made any interviews? Are you doing any more? We see that there's a little bit of disapproval from the mother over Katie and what she's choosing to do with their life. And a somewhat of a suggestion that maybe they would want to be in a relationship a little bit by the grandma. But, basically they just meet up, they leave. And so they go get on the bus to head to their job to valet. And while on the bus, somebody approaches Sean and says, like, give me your pendant, and, this doesn't have to get ugly, like, it won't hurt you and stuff. He's like, hey man, chill out, like, but you can't have my pendant. They kind of grab him and they make like they're going to beat him up. And Katie stands up for him. And the man, like, literally just like grabs her head, slams her down. And Sean just goes, oh, not okay. Absolutely not. Boom. Gets into action, whips these guys' asses real quick. And he's like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, what the fuck? I didn't know you could fight. And he turns around and the guys kind of like get up, and some other dude gets up. Some dude that, previously was just like, sitting in the back. You can see him in the back of the bus, shrugs off like a coat, and, he's got half his arm missing, and an entire blade comes out of it. And so him and Sean get into a fight, and, early on he cuts the brake line accidentally of the bus. So it loses all control. The bus driver is trying to keep it together, but like after a sharp turn or something, he bumps his head and just gets knocked out. So Katie takes over the bus, and then we get this amazing action scene of Sean fighting all throughout the bus, like just using these, like, dodging and whipping and jumping through the different parts of the bus, and just trying to deflect and not get sliced up by this guy who has this crazy blade that can literally just slice right through steel like butter.
Razor fist.
Yeah, razor fist. Razor fist. I mean, it reminded me of like Taserface when I learned his name.
Yes,
even though
it was very Taserface.
Yeah, it's cooler. It's certainly better than Taserface, but that's all I thought of in my head. I was just like, razor fist. And the guy is kind of cooler looking. He's certainly not like a joke or anything. But yeah, they have this pretty intense battle where he's like slicing through parts of the bus, and he like cuts it almost in half. And there's people all standing around. I mean, literally being filmed by one guy who's just a funny little bit of comic relief, filming the whole battle. And eventually, Sean kind of maneuvers these guys in the right position, and like all the guys that had previously been in the fight, like all stand back up, like they've regained their stamina. And Sean kind of, like, you see, gets a little plan together after looking at a couple things in the bus, and he knocks out the dudes, like literally knocks them all out of the bus. Like, those guys are basically dead. Like they flew out of a, bus that's going as, 60 something miles an hour, and they're just dead.
Downhill, San Francisco.
Yeah, you're dead. You're murdered right now. Knocks them all out of the bus, and then has Razor Fist last, sort of like gets him in like a lock, tells everybody get to the front of the bus. And while they get to the front of the bus, he sends a signal to Katie, and he basically, which, Katie was supposed to make a hard right turn, which knocks Razor Fist. He knocks Razor Fist aside, kicks him back, and the whole bus, like, basically like splits off from its back half and leaves Razor Fist behind. And Katie's able to slow the car down by like literally running over, 20 cars and lodging herself between between a dumpster, a garbage truck, not a dumpster, a garbage truck. And so they kind of save the people. Everybody's safe and all that. But Sean realizes that his pendant has been lost. Like, he did catch it. So now he's like kind of worried. And Katie's like, what the fuck is going on? Who the hell are you? What is happening, man? Like, you just got attacked by a freaking, guy with a sword for a fist. you got to tell me what's happening. He's like, there's a lot of stuff you don't know about me, but I have to go do this. And she's like, no, I'm coming with you. So we start getting a little more explanation, right? Another flashback. And he says like, hey, so after my mother died, my father basically like started training me like from when I was 7 until I was like 14 or 15 years old. So like I just started training hardcore all this time. And eventually my dad was like, hey, I have a mission for you. You need to go kill somebody. And, he gave him the thing, and Sean's like, but I didn't go through with it. And they're like interrupted. This cool flashback is like interrupted because it's him explaining it to her on the plane as they're on their way to Macau. It's interrupted by this like waitress. Again, just Marvel, they always do their little funny things. And I just think this was sort of it was like a good, funny moment, kind of, actually.
Yeah.
Like I almost was like, what the hell is this? But then I was like, this is actually hilarious. It's just hilarious, the interaction and the way that it cuts this cool flashback in half. Like it just, cuts it out.
We'll take the vegetarian.
Yeah.
Oh, we're out of that.
So the beef. Yeah. It's just
the only one you have.
Yeah. The only one you have. Right. Yeah. It's okay. But, and so, he kind of ends up being like, hey, well, yeah. So I ended up I didn't kill the guy. I couldn't go through with it. I literally just left and I went and started my own separate life. I escaped from my father to go do my own thing. They're on their way to Macau. They're on this flight.
They're following a postcard who Shang believed belonged to his sister that sent it to him with an address and to follow, and they follow it.
Yep. They head to Macau. They go to this sort of abandoned looking like under construction building. And as they go up the elevator, like he signs a thing, some like waiver. There's some kind of, to get in. Gets to the top, and like a guy's like, hey, welcome to the Golden Daggers. And this is like a fighting arena, and we're worldwide, and we, have lots of cool fights. You're going to be in the big event here. Like you already signed up for it, which Sean didn't know he was signing up for that. So they have the big event coming up. We get to see Wong from Doctor Strange fighting with Abomination from the Incredible Hulk. And that's just an interesting, I mean, it's relatively short, but it's just a cool interaction to see, right? And he beats him, and then, we kind of see them backstage afterwards, and it looks like it might have been like a setup or something, because like they're, he was like, oh, hey, didn't hit you too hard, or did I? Or here, let's take you back to wherever you're coming from. Which looks like some kind of cell in the background. Like he's taking him back to being a cell. Like he let him out for this fight, then he's taking him back to the cell.
I believe the theory was that the cell was
the raft.
Yeah,
I think that's what I've heard too. But there's nothing really. There's just like a kind of cages looking thing in the portal that Wong opens. So that's like a pretty short interaction. Sean goes up. He's gonna fight. He sees who his opponent is, and it's his sister. Who's apparently like Macau's, finest warrior. So they get into a fight, and he's like, sis, hey, what's up? Whoa, what's going on? Why are we fighting? Yada, yada. Hey, dad, like sent some people after me. They're probably coming after you. They're kind of having like this interaction and stuff, but she, like she kind of stops, and he's trying not to like hurt her or really fight her. But in the end, she like takes a moment of him like thinking that it's over or that they're not going to fight anymore, and just, knocks his ass out.
And it's cut with like a little bit of a flashback of her remembering him being gone when he said that he was going to come right back.
Yeah. So we see that there's definitely like a rift here. That, I mean, he said he would come back for her. And in the flashback showing him doing all his training, we saw her like not training, but like picking up and training by herself. So teaching herself. So we got to see this. We got to see kind of the interaction. We get what happened, right? He literally left. He left his sister, even though he said he was coming back for her, and let her just, I don't know, exist at her father's for however long. So after the fight, though, we get Katie and Sean are brought over to her office, and she sort of even elaborates and explains. She's like, I stayed there for however many years, and after that, I left, and I went and started my own thing like 2 or 3 years prior, basically, because I think the timeline's fitting up to be like, she says that she left when she was 14, and she was however many years younger. I was doing the math in my head at one point, but I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, the timeline wasn't adding up to me until I realized that post Endgame is 2023.
Yeah, so from when I believe the math is like, because I think
it's 5 years plus 2018 for Infinity War.
Yeah, Sean leaves to go do his mission when he's 14 and is gone for 10 years. So he's 24. And his sister, though I don't know exactly how old she was, she says like something like, I was there for this many years after that. It was like 6 years after that, and until I turned 14 myself. So like, I think she's supposed to be like 6 years younger than him or something like that. It was something like that. It was like, I left when I was 6 years, when I was the same age that you did, or when I was 16. I think she said I left when I was 16 after 6 years. And when she left, she started her own fight ring. So I think she's supposed to be 20 and he's supposed to be 24. But you know, whatever.
Well, based on the timeline, he arrives in. If we want to get into this, I kind of thought it out. He has to arrive in America right around 2012. One, because that lines up timeline wise. He had to have been born in like 97, 98. And he also is referenced meeting Katie when the song Gangnam Style was around, which would be 2012.
Yeah, precisely. So that is one, like, I think they anchor it there being like, because they literally, in a story they told, they called him Gangnam Style. So it was already a popular enough song that anybody knew that reference.
Disney actually would make that conscious choice to use that to date it.
Yep.
And then 6 years after that would be 2018. She leaves the compound, giving her 5 years if we're counting the snap to get her shit together. And maybe it was because of the snap that she was able to leave her father.
Yeah, maybe it was because of the snap that she was able to leave her father. Maybe she was able to set this thing up not just in 5 years, if what the timeline is correct or whatever, but like 10 years. Maybe she is like age-wise actually like, you know, extra. No. She would just be existing. No, never mind.
Yeah, she spends the 5 years existing.
Yeah,
but in a tumultuous time where clearly, female sideline characters get to become masters of criminal organizations. That's what happened during that 5 years.
Yeah. Just like a certain. I don't know. We don't, because this is spoilers for that thing. Just like another Marvel show that people should go potentially watch. No spoilers. For that show, because what if they haven't watched that but they're watching this? So but yeah, that's a thing that happens. People females be doing that.
It's a good time to be doing it.
Yeah. So but she's like, you left me, I have no interest in helping you, I don't care. And he's like, well, then why'd you send me this letter? And she's like, I didn't send you a letter. And right about that exact moment, like on cue, the 10 Rings organization, which I don't think I've actually said the 10 Rings other than the legend of the 10 Rings. The 10 Rings, the organization that their father runs, starts invading their thing, and everybody's running, and they're like, all right, we're escaping this way. Katie and Sean start trying to escape. Like, they like go out and they're like having to climb down the scaffolding, the bamboo scaffolding that's outside the building. He's being attacked and assaulted. At one point, Katie is kind of like attacked too, and she is like holding on a bamboo thing. She's going to fall. She's going to die. You know, Sean tries to save her and can't, like drops her like after he gets shocked in the ribs. And
we get this moment where it's like almost recreating like the Emma Stone falling in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like just like such like she's falling.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's like a slow-mo, like
immediately
whatever.
Catches her.
Yeah. And then immediately is caught by his sister. His sister came back to help them and continues to also fight off some of them. Eventually,
can I just say that for me, this is my favorite fight scene in the movie. There was just something, maybe it's because it was in a theater, I think it was helped by that, but I felt like the tension of them like being on like the side of a building, like particularly for Katie, because like I'm imagining, all right, Shang-Chi and all these people, they're trained fighters, but I can see myself like having to be there, and that shit's terrifying to me.
Yeah. And again, this is exactly kind of a scene I was imagining when I say that being in a theater adds to the immensity. Like, they are on the side of a skyscraper on scaffolding that's made of bamboo. You know, bamboo's tough or whatever, but it's literally wooden scaffolding on the side of a building, and they're just like in combat. And it's not even like really thick. It's like about the width of a person. Like, it is another cool, intense, well choreographed, cool fight. So during this thing, we get a figure who we saw in the flashbacks. I didn't quite mention him, but who wears this kind of mask. And I think he has like a name in the Marvel universe. I don't know what it is. I think I did hear it one time, but I forget.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like the death dealer or something like that. But he shows up, and you know, he basically he gets a hold of the pendant. He steals the pendant from his sister, which is what they were after all along. They wanted the 2 pendants that both of the kids had. Steals the pendant, takes it, starts running off. Sean goes after him, like just books it after him, goes to, he gets into a nice fight with him, like bam, 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 and he beats him. And we see there's a moment of hesitation where he has his dagger and he goes and he's about to basically finish him. Like we see right
he's
here.
He's going to deal death to Death Dealer.
Yeah, he's going to finish Sean. Confirmed Death Dealer?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So guy named Death Dealer. And yeah, like confirmed he's going to axe him, and he's stopped by his own father. Now I want to just point out that moment where he like almost kills the guy and stuff, and just save it for a little bit later. His father stops him. His father shows up. He came there and he was like, "My son." And that iconic scene from all the commercials we saw, like, I knew that they would not be able to kill, like my men would not be able to kill you if they tried. And I'm glad that I was right. And he like kind of welcomes him back. He was like, "Hey, I'm so glad to see you." Like, you think you're like, you sent all these guys to kill him, but like they have obviously a sort of like not traditional relationship. So, but he's captured Katie, his sister, and him. He's like, "All right, we're all going back home. We're going back to the compound." They go back to the compound and they basically just have dinner. They're like, "Hey, my kids, obviously, come to dinner." During dinner, he sort of, like, they're like, "Oh, what have you?" He's like, I've known what you were doing all this time. I've always known where both of you were. I've always had tabs on you. Sort of talks a little more about, sort of explains to Katie about a little more about himself. Like, and he tells them his name. Like, "My name is Wenwu. I've gone by many names," right? Tells the story about the Mandarin, like literally
from Iron Man 3.
Yeah, from Iron Man 3, about how somebody used a moniker of him, like used the 10 rings specifically, and then made out the moniker of him to be the Mandarin. And he makes a joke about it. I like that they take this whole moment to make a joke about, like, I mean, Disney does it on purpose. They're addressing, hey, the Mandarin existed here, but this isn't the Mandarin we're getting here. And he's like, the Mandarin is just one of many names I have had that people have decided to call me. And he's like, I do not understand why they use this name, though. This name was stupid. The Mandarin is not even, it's the name of a chicken dish. Like,
it is a fruit.
Yeah. So he sort of makes light of it and brings it up. And I like that. I mean, I just appreciate that Disney sort of like, they didn't like scrub it under the thing or just act like it didn't happen. He was like, no, like it happened and it actually makes sense in a way. They did it that way. Don't know why they used that name. But he was offended. He was like, but nonetheless, I was offended that they used my moniker in such a, silly way. And he kind of goes on and is talking about like what happened with their mother and how he's like, I'm going to save your mother. Like I've heard her. She's told me that, like, I'm going to save her, and shows him like, but they're like, well, you can't get to where she's from. You can't find the way. And he's like, I can now. And they go to a different area, right? This cool, interestingly sculpted portion of his compound that has like a dragon statue, and he places both of their pendants on it, and the dragon statue releases this magical water map that shows the path through the magic forest that prevents anybody getting to Ta Lo. And he knows he's like, to get into Ta Lo, you need to know the precise time and the path. And now I know both because I have this map. And he's like, and now we're going to go into Ta Lo and we're going to rescue your mother from where they're keeping her. And Sean's like, no, this is ridiculous. You're literally insane. Like this, we're not going to go do this. And his dad's like, and just like whips his ass, tosses it on the ground, does the same to his sister. And he's like, if you're not going to help me, then I'll just bring her back and you can see your mom when I get back. So you can go be in the dungeon. Boom. Throws him in the dungeon. And, there's that.
In the dungeon, they meet a familiar face.
Yeah. So they're in the dungeon. They're talking like, how can we escape? What can we do? They hear some noises down the way, and eventually they like kind of go to investigate, and they find a man.
Trevor Slattery.
Yeah, Trevor Slattery, the actor who played the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And I mean, we see him with his like little friend, and he basically explains the simple story, which is that like, hey, your dad wasn't happy about it. They kidnapped me. They were going to kill me. But I literally launched into an impression of Macbeth, and they decided to spare me and use me kind of like a jester, basically.
And I heard online that this was actually kind of hinted at in, I think, a Thor: The Dark World, like special feature on the DVD or something, where it was revealed that the Ten Rings organization found him in jail and basically kidnapped him there.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that. I think I had heard about that like a while ago, the secondary scene or whatever. But yeah, it's basically a guy like approaches him in jail and is like, the real person that has that name, wants to, meet you.
So yeah, and the little friend that he meets, little Morris, it's like this little furry guy with no face and wings, and it's almost like a flying like stool, but like it's a little furry creature. And yeah, based on a real like Chinese folklore mythical creature. And Trevor tells his story, quite an amusing little scene, and basically with the help of Morris says that there is another path through the changing forest to Ta Lo, that if they want to try to go get in there, Morris can probably lead them through. It might be a little dangerous, but they all start to talk about it, and they decide that, yeah, we have to stop my dad, so we have to get there first. So if this is the only way, we got to do it this way. And his sister manages to break them through a wall to the secret tunnel hidden under the compound.
Secret tunnel through the mountain.
Not the first time this movie makes me think of that show.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, because I looked it up right now, and I had seen it before, is that Morris is supposed to be like a Hundun, I think, yes. Which is like a mythical Chinese creature, which will come into play a little bit more later too.
Yeah. So they escape out, and then they in kind of like a weird cut to, they have to like make like a driving escape out, and Katie once again shows that she's a really good driver.
Yeah, we it's established like she is a super amazing driver. And yeah, they like escape, in Razor Fist's car, which is where we get the confirmation what his name is, Razor Fist.
My car.
Yeah, my car. And they're like speeding around, they're trying to prevent him from getting out. They still escape, and their father's like, let them go. He doesn't even think that they're actually going to Ta Lo. He just says, let them go. I'll do it anyways. Doesn't matter. No problem to me.
Yeah.
But they go to Ta Lo.
But yeah, this is where I think it's kind of like a weird cut, because they just appear. They don't even appear at like the entrance to Ta Lo. They appear like in the first place you get like sideswiped off to when you're getting redirected in the forest. Because they're like on the cliff edge, which I thought was like kind of a weird cut to start them there.
I mean, I don't know that they were at the cliff edge. They're just at the end. They're just at like the entrance of the forest.
All right. Because it looks like it's on the edge of a cliff, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But yeah, and it starts with this like very like taking a breather scene of Trevor Flattery just being just saying funny stuff, like telling like little funny anecdotes, and like just
he's literally just explaining what his inspiration to be an actor was, and it was that
the Planet of the Apes thing. I couldn't remember what it was.
He was like, I couldn't believe that those monkeys could be taught to act, and if they could be taught to act like that, then what could I do?
They weren't really riding horses. They were acting like they could ride horses.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like, it was relatively hilarious. And also just like, what the fuck? Like, and I feel like there's got to be like a deeper meaning there, but I don't know what it is.
I think it was just really funny.
Yeah. But so while he's having this conversation, the path opens up, and basically they, using Katie's excellent driving skills, they speed through. They literally have to basically stay in this pocket, like of open. The trees literally, open up, and if they miss it, then they will be gobbled up by the forest, basically. And Katie drives like an expert and gets all the way to the end, even though it does kind of swallow them at the end, but she just crashes through the last little bit of bamboo or whatever.
Yeah,
and they make it through, and then they proceed through a waterfall, and they drive within, and literally they basically drive into like an open magic space, and they're transported through a portal that takes them to the extra interdimensional land of Ta Lo.
And can I just say how funny it is watching them drive through Ta Lo in Razor Fist's car?
Yeah, it is a funny juxtaposition that there. It's not even like an appropriate car. It's literally like this graffitied, like flamboyant car with like pink and orange and green and stuff on it. It's very funny. But they drive through Ta Lo and they're seeing other mythical creatures from Chinese mythology. I don't know all of them, but there's like the horse that has like the face of a dragon, and like phoenixes, and specifically like foo dogs.
Yeah, and
like real foo dogs.
And I think the one that, at least for me, I found the most entertaining was the darn near Vulpix and Ninetales clone of the actual ancient creatures that Vulpix and Ninetales were based off of.
Yeah. Kyubis, right? Which I got that from Naruto, so I'm just assuming.
That would be the Japanese interpretation of this specific Chinese mythos.
Yeah, exactly. But so they drive through Ta Lo, and it's obviously like the land. What's cool is that I like that we see all these Chinese mythical creatures, and I'm like, oh, these mythical creatures did exist and probably interacted with them, and now they just exist in this interdimensional realm where they're safer or something.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist here because they would be, I don't know, hunted or abused by the people. So they live in this again, I don't know exactly what Ta Lo is supposed to be, but it's some kind of interdimensional, or like,
it gives me like spirit realm vibes from like an Inuyasha vibe.
Yeah. So we get them driving through, and they meet the people of the village of Ta Lo. And they basically are like, yo, get out of here. Like the leader of it, Guangbo, I believe his name is. He's like, get out of here. Like, we don't want you here. Like, we don't know who, da, 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 da. But he is quieted by Sean and Jia Ling. Jia Ling, I don't think I've actually said her name. I've just been saying his sister, Jia Ling. Sean and Jia Ling's aunt, whose name I cannot remember right now, but she quiets them and says, hey, shut up, guy. I have waited a long time to meet you. I'm your aunt, and you are welcome here. Like, you are, this is, you can treat this as your home.
Ying Nan, portrayed by the actress Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. And they're welcomed in, and sort of they start to like see some of the stuff, and she tells the story of Ta Lo and kind of like why they're here, what their purpose is, which is essentially like, long ago, there was like a bunch of big bad things, and they were trying to fight them, but they were having a hard time. So eventually, though, a great protector came to them, a dragon, and helped them in this fight, and helped them imprison and beat back this dark bad thing. And so now these are the descendants of the people that sworn to like stay and protect that gateway and make sure that the big dark bad thing doesn't come. And they're like servants of the great protector, and because of that, they get gifts from the great protector, from the dragon.
Both like sort of magical powers, but also dragon scales. Yeah,
which they make their armor and weapons out of, and it's basically demonstrated like the scales make any weapon essentially like ultra, like great, and can cut through like anything. And assumingly the armor is, impenetrable-esque. So we get that, and we kind of get like a split off where, we have a couple different things going on. Like, Katie is taken, and she's like kind of, showing like, oh, here, practice shooting, right? And she says like, oh, I'm not really good at anything. I don't really like to try too much of stuff because, and they just say this really simple, nice little quote, which is like, if you aim at nothing, you'll never hit anything, right? Boom. It just kind of encapsulates almost Katie's whole thing that she got, like her story, her arc, which is that she's like, I don't try too hard because I don't like want to fail, or I don't like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. So I don't really try. And they're like, well, just try at something. If you would just try at something, then, maybe you'll get better at it. Maybe you'll be good at it. And she kind of practices with the bow and gets okay with it. We have Sean and Jia Ling are presented with basically like a gift that was left for them by their mother. Their mother asked, that these be given to her children when they come, assuming that they would eventually come there. And it's like basically like a dragon, like a very nice dragon scale, like fitted vestments. Yeah. And Sean has an interaction with I might forget it again. His aunt. Yeah. Her name has an interaction with her where they kind of like, have a fight, and she sort of like demonstrates the same of like, he's like, how could I beat my father? Like, I have to beat my father. She's like, this is how you would beat your father. Like, this is how your mother beat your father. She's the only one that ever beat him. So you have to understand what it is that she did. And it's not that she's teaching him now, because we have flashbacks where we saw that she did teach him basically the Tai Chi. I'm assuming it's kind of based on Tai Chi is what they're doing.
Well, it's like the difference between a closed fist approach and an open handed approach, in that it's a different mindset, and like they have different specific like cultural meanings.
Yeah. And we get here where, I mean, there's this theme of like balance, right? And Sean like finding a balance, right? And he's had all this influence from his father. Like he had, his mother to, bringing him up, but then he had all this of his father beaten into him. And I think there's this like sort of internal war going on with Sean between like sort of these influences.
It's the yin yang.
Yeah. And here she demonstrates, she's like, this is how you would do it. You need to accept, like, open your hand, accept like that you have. And she even specifically says, like, accept that you are a product of not just your mother, but also your father. Like you are both of these things. You are the greatness of both of them, but you may also carry, like their failings, and you have to accept that before you can really move forward. Like just a cool, like, man, like what, we're right on the theme of this movie, just really hitting it. And so we have all this happening, and they specifically say like his dad's on his way, and they had, I guess it was like, it took him a whole day to get there, and they have like a night. So like his father will be arriving in like a day or two. And that evening we have Sean, and he's off by himself, and Katie comes to find him, and they have this sort of, like this talk where Sean kind of reveals, he's like, one, that when I was sent on that mission, he had sort of indicated to her that he couldn't go through with it, that he didn't do it, but he did do it. He killed that guy. Like we get the flashback that it might have been a little sooner than this. I might have like skipped over something. I think the flashback might have even occurred back when he was at the compound still. But here at some point we get a flashback, which is essentially that he was with his mother, and these men came to their compound and were like, hey, your man did stuff to us. We're the Iron Gang, and we're gonna get back at him. And his mother was like, please don't hurt my children. You can we'll settle this. And they're like, all right, cool, send them away, and we'll take care of this. And she fights all these guys, and we see later when Wu arrives that there's like 20 dudes on the ground. But inevitably they beat her.
They overwhelmed her.
And
Sean saw the whole thing.
Yeah, and Sean saw the whole thing. So he's kind of haunted by that he did that, and that he couldn't do anything, and we get a moment here where we show him going with his dad. His dad takes him. He's like, hey, come with me. He picks back up the rings, and he takes Sean, and he goes and finds like some of the people that did this, like some of the footmen, the henchmen. And basically, Sean watches as he just like beats and like annihilates all these guys, like takes them all down, goes and like questions one of them. The guy's like, I don't know. And his father's just wham, just like blast power on him, kills him right in front of Sean. And he tells Sean, he's like, hey, this debt has to be repaid in blood. Like, and I need you to be strong, and you need to join me, and you need to help me, avenge your mother. Are you going to do that? And he's like, okay, yeah, Dad. And that's like the beginning of his training. We say that was the beginning. And we get the confirmation that his dad sent him, that mission he sent him on was to find the leader of the gang that killed his mother. And he's like, this is how you prove yourself. It is your duty, your honor to go avenge your mother right now. And how Sean like is kind of beat up over this, that he is, as much as his father might have done bad things and he tried to escape it, that he has a lot of his father in him, that his willingness to kill there was, his father did imbue that into him. And this is why I pointed out earlier, is that he was going to kill the death dealer. Like, so Sean is, as much as Sean tries to be, peaceful, he tries to not, do these things. He's tried to be good. And he, he is good by doing and living that truth. You are that truth. But he also has a killer within him. He was trained to be an assassin.
Yeah.
And that, like, in that moment with the death dealer, he was like, and it even during that moment, there was a flashback to all the times when the death dealer like inflicted pain on him and like, was forcing him and was like an antagonistic relationship with him, even though he was also like a teacher.
Yeah.
But, and he was like, and he, with that retribution, that vengeance, that, that sort of hate, he wanted to kill him. And I think in this moment, he's telling this to Katie, and he's like, I'm not like the person you think I am. Like, I'm not like a good guy. Like, I'm a bad guy. I'm a killer. Like, that's within me. And she's like, she's basically like, it's okay. Like, you have done things, but that doesn't make you that. Like, you just are what you are. You are what you try to do, and you try to be a good person. So that is okay. And kind of just like comforts him basically and helps him with accepting. And he's like, I know what I have to do. My dad trained me to be an assassin. I have it within me to kill. And so I know what I have to do. I have to kill my dad. Like, I'm going to kill him. and he resolves that he is going to kill Wenwu, his father. So, and that's pretty much the end of that interaction. We have the next day, and they're like, they've arrived, they're here, and all the people get ready to battle. And Wenwu shows up with his 10 Rings organization ready for war. All the people of the village, are ready. Sean and Jialing are like in their vestments, their dragon vestments, and they approach, and Wenwu's like, just let me go through, and they try to convince him, right? Which one thing that the ant, we kind of skipped over, the ant explains, makes clear, is that this entity that's behind the thing, it has a power. It can like literally speak into your mind. It's telling your dad that it's warping his mind and telling him this. But it's not true. Like it is manipulating him to get itself released. They try to convince Wenwu that when they see him, and he just will not believe them. And so he's like, all right, have at it. Like, boom, fight breaks out. Everybody just clashes with each other and starts battling. And just, this movie is full of so many good action scenes. It's ridiculous. Like, yeah, we've just had, but also full of just story. Like, this is a full-on action movie, but like we have a good story going all the way. And it's just and this is like, we get a whole like war-like combat scene.
I especially like the featuring of like I think you said their names before, but the lion dogs.
Yeah, Foo Dogs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the Foo Dogs specifically like assist, like they are a part of the combat and helping out. So during this, we're seeing like Sean do some things and his aunt and Jialing, and they're all like, aiding in the combat and everything. But at one point, his aunt's like, go after your father. You have to go after him. Sean goes to confront his father. His father has found the memorial to his mother. And he's like, I'm going to stop you. Like, you can't do this. And they start getting after it. Boom. They're having this excellent combat where they're going back and forth. And one of the best, the best emotional scenes I've seen from the actor that plays Shang-Chi.
Simu.
Yeah. Simu Liu. Yeah. And here, like, he's fighting his dad, and it kind of looked like his dad sort of gets the edge on him, but then he just uses that fury and rage to like get back at him. And I just remember that moment where he's like, is this what you wanted? Like, I like that. I love that. And at the end, though, like, his dad kind of takes advantage of him, like, showing like a little, almost like a moment of weakness, a moment of hesitation to strike him down. And his dad is like, doesn't show that hesitation. He doesn't have that same.
And he like blasts him with the rings, like deep into like the little,
this big lake thing, this water, and then he shoots himself all across the water into the gate that's up in the mountain.
And we don't see Sean arise.
Yeah, we cut back to the battle, and it shows him, he gets to that gate and he just starts pounding it, and we see it like it starts to kind of weaken it, and these like the mythical creatures, the small ones, start escaping, and by little by little.
They're like these little bat, like monstrous pterodactyl like things.
Yeah, they're like a crazy
like
aberrant,
demonic.
Yeah, like an aberrant alien crazy thing with tentacles and wings and rando face. And we see some of them fly over, and they're trying to say like, hey, you can't, these bad things are escaping, like, and it'll kill all of us, like, and we need to work together. And they're like,
you can't hurt them with your weapons.
Yeah, and they're like, ha ha ha, we're the 10 Rings, we can beat anybody. And of course, like, right when this guy's saying it, like, the Death Dealer, like, so I don't know, like, put number 1, the number 2 lieutenant of Wenwu is immediately like picked up and just like soul sucked, done, dead, like.
And then another one comes after Razor Fist, who is not able to kill the things because his normal weapon doesn't have that power. Yeah. But he is saved with the power of dragon scales. Yeah.
And so he kind of was like, all right, let's work together. So they all arm themselves, get ready, and are like, the 10 Rings and the villagers of Talo ally and are prepared to fight back the demons that are escaping. And they get prepared, and we see Wenwu continuing to bash on the thing to the point where it like ruptures, and like they start spewing out. Tons of them start coming out. While this is happening, we get a scene of Sean is like sinking to the bottom of this lake, and we get all these bubbles start flowing around him. Specifically, bubbles flow up, and then like air pockets flow up, and they breathe life back into his lungs. And we get this whooshing all around him, and then we see like the Great Protector, the dragon that Talo serves. Is coming as a rising from the lake, and as all these like demon creatures are coming, Katie, at first was said, hey, you can't join, don't join, you can't help, but she's like, no, I gotta help my friends, and they're like, hey, no problem, just don't get yourself killed. they're all ready to strike. And as soon as this huge crowd of them are coming, the Great Protector shoots out and starts like eating and ripping and tearing as many of them as he can, and aiding the battle.
And we see who's riding the Great Protector.
And it's Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm. Boy.
And so we get him bursting out of the water. They start engaging the demons, and they're fighting them and doing their best and everything. They say, like, you need to stop your father. Like, he's going to break down the gate. The dragon delivers him over there. Sean jumps down, and they have an interaction where he's like, Dad, you have to stop. And he's like, no, I'm so close. I'm going to save your mother. I'm going to. So they battle. And again, just another amazing fight sequence where he's blasting with the rings. But now Sean is sort of, he's accepted, like he's, reached a place of acceptance or balance. And now he's engaging in the style that, his mom taught him, that his aunt, sort of brought back out in him. And he's able to absorb the rings. And he basically takes, in the conflict, he takes 5 of the rings. 5 of the rings now like switch their allegiance or their alignment to Sean. And so now they're like battling ring to ring.
And they change colors.
Yeah, and they change colors. And we see that they have this, instead of this like blue crackling energy, now they have this like this radiant,
Warm, orange,
golden energy. And so they battle and they go back and forth to the point where eventually, we see this, this major clash in the air, and we think Sean is blasted down. But Wenwu, like falls to the ground with no rings, and Sean walks out of it, all rings. All the rings have aligned to Sean. He is, whatever it is that was necessary. Like he did the thing. He took all the rings. He was like, I am the master of the rings. Get wrecked, yo. And he, pulls it all up and gets ready to do a straight up Kamehameha blast. It looks like, which his mother did before to defeat Wenwu previously. And I mean, but we know Sean, he said, I'm going to kill him. And we can see like he's building this power up, and he's about to just clash on him. And he just tosses him on the ground. And he's like, I'm not going to fight you, Dad. Your family needs you. He's like, even in this moment, like I could have beat you, but the mercy, like from his mother, we see like, even though he had the fighting instinct to kill his dad, he was like, no, I'm choosing mercy even then. And your family needs you. Like, I don't want to kill you. And you see his father kind of be like, wow, and just what an amazing scene during the fight. I mean, one of the biggest things is that like Sean is literally doing the exact same moves that his mother did, like the slow motion where he's like, spinning his father around. And there's this exact same scene of what his mother did. And like, I think even in that moment, that's when his father was like realizing, he's like, whoa, hey, this is like your mother. Like, I'm seeing your mother in you. I'm seeing the light kind of. But during their battle, those devil things were able to absorb some souls. They were able to sneak them into the gate and give the entity behind it enough power to burst forth. And as they conclude their battle, it breaks free. And it like basically like turns back to kind of assault them. And Wenwu immediately, he brings the rings to him and goes to basically protect his son. He like, gets them out of the way, and then, goes to stand against the demon, and it grabs hold of him and basically starts to like, like it takes hold of him and is going to kill him. But he looks down and he sees his son, and he just has these flashbacks of like the love, the moments with his son and everything. And we see that like he just kind of resigns himself, and he really like, as this thing starts to suck his soul out, he releases all the rings back to his son, and he's killed. His soul is ripped from him.
Yeah, but he does still see his father die in front of him, and it's a kind of a sad moment. But I mean, in the end, he thought he was doing what was right. He thought he was helping his like long lost wife.
Yeah. And in that moment, I think, Wenwu somewhat found redemption. Like Sean put it out to him. He said, your family needs you. And in that moment, instead of him trying to fight the beast, he said, I know that I can't do, like, this is not like, I need to give this to you, son, passing it to you. You have the strength. You demonstrate you have the strength to take the rings, and I'm gone. Like, this is it. Let me go. I'll pay for what I've done. And he gives him the rings. And so Sean like gets ready to fight the beast, and the Great Protector comes and attacks and like deflects the beast from him. And they sort of get into it a little bit, but the beast like starts to try and escape. And riding the beast is Jia Ling now, or sorry, riding the dragon, not the beast, is Jia Ling. And he goes and joins them, and the Great Protector surges up this water, crazy water blast and like prevents the demon from getting any further, and like starts whipping it around and controlling it, and getting it wrapped up in the water. And it's kind of like he's got it under control. He's like kind of bringing it down towards the water more. But while this is happening, the demons are still bringing them more and more souls, like, a few dozen souls he absorbs, and he gets enough power that he's able to break free of the water and overpower the dragon, and literally grab the dragon and is holding onto him, and is really starting to suck the dragon's soul out. And we get down on the ground. They say, like, if it sucks out a dragon's soul, like, it'll be too powerful to stop. We have to stop it. And Guangbo and Katie both, he's like, we need to, like, shoot it in the throat. Like, we have to aim for its throat and shoot it. Guangbo is grabbed by one of these demons, and his soul is ripped out of him. And
so now it's left to Katie to try and aim and shoot the monster's throat.
Yeah, but back on the dragon, Sean and Zhao Ling are, like, they're holding on, and it looks like they're getting ready to try and, like, stop him, but Zhao Ling falls and is grabbed by the tentacles of the demon and is being pulled away, and Sean, like, grabs hold of her and even uses the rings to, like, connect him, like he can't, like, he's locked onto her, and she's like, you have to let me go and stop this. And moment of redemption, he's like, I won't let you go again, sis. I won't leave you again. So he redeems him, another, bringing it all full circle, redeems himself in this moment, for having left her so long ago.
But in this moment, you almost wish that he would, because that's the only way to protect all of them, is to stop this demon from taking the soul.
Yeah, which I have to say, I'm like, that was the wrong choice. Like, I get the point of it is bringing it full circle, bringing back to that redemption, the redeeming himself with his sister. But that was the wrong choice, man. You're like, let dragon, like, I won't let you go, but then the demon will be so powerful that it just kills all of you. And
and the dragon's soul looks like it's almost all the way out. Like, it's like final moments. Someone has to do something, and arrow fires through.
Yep, an arrow, boom, hits it right in the throat where it was aimed at, and just ruptures it and destroys its power or diminishes it greatly. Like, whatever power it was holding on to, it loses something.
And we see Katie let out the word shit in a Marvel movie, which I'm sure that they've had like that, like, kind of language before, but in the moment I was like, oh, this movie is PG-13.
Ooh, PG-13. But yeah, so she, the dragon's able to escape from the demon and sort of deflect him and kind of start beating him back because of that. And Sean is able to get Zhao Ling away from the tentacles, and they're riding the dragon, and she's like, go, like, get him now. And so Sean literally, like, runs up the dragon, leaps off, like, jumps onto the demon, and then, like, blasts off of him, blast literally the rings into the demon's mouth, and it, like, shoots him so far up in the sky. And so he starts doing these waves, like doing sort of the flows and the things that he learned, like, from his mother, and you see this crazy glow coming out of the demon's chest, and he starts, like, whipping them around, and you can see, like, it's glowing more and more and more, and just imagining what the rings are doing inside of it. Like,
that was, I know that it's the big CG, like, splashy showdown at, like, the climax of the Marvel movie, and we get lots of things like that, but I just thought this was so cool. Like, maybe I just like the dragon, to be honest, and, like, the weird in the demon things. Those are, like, to me, really cool things to see on the big movie screen. But God, I loved this.
Yeah, it was just, like, super tight, amazing. He's doing all these flowing movements, and then he finally, like, kind of gets into a position and, like, holds his arms out in this way that his father did. Like, this is a thing that his fathers always did, and, like, when he would enact the rings or, like, like, strike them out, and he finally just wham, like, he does this move that's like a finisher, and it just boom, the demon literally explodes. The explosion, like, releases so much energy that it just, like, kills all the other demons in the area, a wave of this, like, killer energy. And yeah, he vanquishes the demon. It is done. Like, he did that shit. So good stuff. And so that's our big climax. And from there, we sort of just have, like, a little bit of a resolution. We have them come together with all the, like, we see all of the aftermath and the destruction, all of the people that are dead, and they have, like, a short little, they get together and, like, you did it, amazing. And then we cut to that evening, and they are laying the souls of all of their, those that have gone to rest, and
and they're lighting lanterns and
setting them out onto the lake to float away. And we see the dragon, under the water, swirling the lanterns around, but then he also comes out of the water and flies and swirls around, and just beautiful little display where they're releasing
just
all of them.
such pretty, like you could see this, like them putting this into one of their park shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was just like this beautiful little moment, and that cuts to Katie and Sean basically explaining the events that happened to their friend. And it just sounds amazing and fantastic. Like, oh yeah, Sean literally did this crazy Kamehameha blast and like blew up the demon's chest. And he was like, I fired the arrow and stuff. And their friend is like, you're just getting back at me for last week. You're just kidding. Ha ha ha. And they're like, no, we're not kidding. We're not joking. And like, there's no way that happened. As they're talking, a portal opens up, and Wong stepped through. And it's like, Shang-Chi. And he's like, present. He's like, you're gonna need to come with me right now. Like, we need to go, big shit's happening.
Her too.
Yeah, her too. You come, important stuff. And so, obviously it's kind of proved that to their friend, oh yeah, obviously the shit did really happen. And that's boom, roll credits, end of the movie. They go with Wong, they step through together, like an arm in arm thing or whatever. And yeah, that's the end of the movie. And
post-credit scene.
Boom, post-credit scene. They're there with Wong, who's examining, he's got this, sort of an illusion that he's made of the ring dissected a little bit. And they're examining it. And we get, boom, cameos from Captain Marvel and the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, Brie Larson. That's the name of Captain Marvel, whatever. And they're like, what is this thing? What is it? We don't understand. It's not Gamma. It's not Alien, or we don't understand. Its signature's older than even most other things and stuff. So we're just getting the hints that there's some mystery to this. And apparently it's putting out a beacon now. Ever since he activated it, then it's signaling to something somewhere. So we just kind of get left with that. And we get a nice ending where they're like, oh, you need to go and get some rest, and your life is going to be very different now, and all this stuff. And they're like, okay, yeah, some rest would be good, but and karaoke,
living it up at the Hotel California.
Yeah, exactly. And we just get this hilarious, great scene of Wong singing karaoke with Shang-Chi and Katie. And yeah, and so
then one more credit scene after another roll of credits.
Yeah, and then another after credit scene, which is basically Zhao Ling, who had been indicated that she's shutting down the operations of her father, or in fact not shutting anything down. She's assimilating it with her own operations.
Yeah, we see her assistant dude, played by Ronnie Chang, that was at the brawling place, show up, and Razor Fist looks like he's taking under her leadership, and yeah.
And the 10 Rings will be back with Zhao Ling as the head, which I was like, cool. Yeah, good. Honestly, this is a way more, reasonable, sort of thing for her to do. Why is she disassembling this beat? Do that shit.
See, I thought because I didn't know who her character is supposed to be in the comics. I was like, oh, obviously she's going to go live in Ta Lo because all she's ever wanted was her mother. And so clearly she wants to go live with her aunt. But I was wrong. I misinterpreted her character.
Yeah. So, but that's end of the movie, actual finish, last credit scene. Didn't actually catch that last credit scene. Another good thing that I went and saw it twice, because I did not see the after credit scene. They got me. They were like, oh, you get one press credit scene, but really there's another one. So the second time I got to actually watch it.
Noob.
Yeah. But yeah, there it was. Took me an hour, but I got through the whole recap of the movie. And yeah, let's get into some talking points. So let me ask you, okay, are there any of the things that you can come to mind where you could identify why this isn't an A+ movie for you?
The non-A+ stuff, nothing in this moment, honestly. Revisiting this movie is kind of maybe giving me rose-colored glasses, and I'm actually not remembering as well any of the weaker things of the movie. I do remember us talking after the movie that if there was anything that felt weak, it was possibly Simu Liu's acting as Shang-Chi, which in my memory, I'm pretty positive on him, and I think he does really well in certain key moments. But I will agree that he's not as charismatic as most Marvel leads. He doesn't have Robert Downey Jr. charisma, but I'd put him about as charismatic as maybe like a Benedict Cumberbatch and Doctor Strange.
Yeah. So that is one thing I would agree with you on. I think and the thing is, me and Ryan actually talked about this off the podcast, so we're kind of reiterating here. But I wish I had seen a little more of him. I don't know that he's an amazing, like he's a really great actor, and that kind of showed a little bit. That's why I specifically really liked the moment when he was like, is this what you wanted? Like, that's when I got like some real emotion expression from him, where I felt like, wow, yeah, like here's him. It's not just a guy, like, getting into combats and like, oh, could you act like a regular American guy? Like, okay, I don't know. Maybe it's to say it doesn't seem like any of the roles he was portraying were very challenging. He was just being like regular American-ish guy.
Yeah, he wasn't as quippy as most Marvel characters, and I think that's because they relegated a lot more of the comedy to Awkwafina. Yeah, which for me, as a person who enjoys Awkwafina in most things that I see her in, and just am aware of her capabilities as an actor, I enjoyed seeing her in this. I am happy that there's some indication that she will be present in other things.
Yeah. Hey, this is like gotta say this, and I might have actually said this some other time, but
if we did Raya and the Last Dragon, you might have.
I don't think we did do Raya and the Last Dragon. Nonetheless, and this is a totally personal thing. She can go do all the things that she wants, and good for her for being and stuff. But I don't like Awkwafina as an actor. I don't think she's a very like she's entertaining. She is a comedian, and and for that reason. But like, I just don't really like her.
Have you seen The Farewell?
I haven't. No, but I have heard that's really good though, and maybe that would change my opinion a little more. But I just feel like I just don't like her. I have an opinion that I don't really like her that much. I don't really like her voice. And again, like that's not something that you can change. I'm not like saying like, oh, your voice sucks and you are terrible. I'm not trying to like make any less of her as a person. It's just a personal feeling. I don't really like her that much, and but I didn't let that take away from this movie. I wasn't like, this movie's worse because she's in it. Like, I mean, still, it's an A-. That's not one of the reasons I didn't like it. I think Simu Liu's performance could have been better, but it's not like it drags the movie down or makes it so bad or anything.
See, I actually think I liked Simu a lot more than you did, which is actually interesting because I also don't have the problem with Awkwafina. So it's honestly, I'm trying to remember what, if any, issues I had with the movie were, and it's maybe that the second half of the movie is not quite as well paced as the first half, because it's like first half, like there's a lot. It feels like interesting stuff is happening and we're getting cool fight scenes. And then the second half kind of really slows down, and like half of the movie is spent in Ta Lo, even though it feels like not that much happened in Ta Lo.
I don't know that I would entirely agree with you that the pacing seems wrong, because I actually think, I mean, my feeling was I
thought the pacing felt good in the first half of the movie, and I just feel like it slowed down.
I just felt like the way that they delivered, like I feel like it was executed to me, really well. Where I think that they were like, we get a little bit of background and then we go to like present, and then we get some like flashback and we go to present, and it was all placed in there like in the correct ways.
Here's another thing. I enjoyed the flashbacks, but I've actually heard criticism of the flashbacks, which I could understand, because it feels like a narrative crutch in a way, like that if they had just told this movie in its normal order, those events wouldn't have been interesting as they became, because they wove them in at specific times, which I actually, generally speaking, don't like as a criticism, because like, hey, they made it interesting, didn't they? Then the scenes became interesting, even if they wouldn't have been out of context. It's like the people who think that Memento isn't a good movie because if you watch it in chronological order, it's not interesting.
Yeah, that's honestly, I would never agree with that at all, because just what you said, it is interesting though. They did put it together this way. It makes those events more significant. They're delivering it to you in a way, like in a way that makes things like they're delivering you the flashback scenes as you need to know them. Like you learn the right things that you need to know for each, phase as we're moving forward through this part of the story. And then we get like the background, we get to know the significance, we get to understand the feeling behind like what's happening. I think it's because of that. again, I'm not saying that flashbacks are always very good in movies, because I think sometimes it is. I get that it is a crutch as a in cinema. However, I think these are all done really well.
I just am sort of saying that this movie does a lot of information dumping through these flashbacks. And in fact, there's like a big like one once they arrive in Talo, and they make it as interesting as I think that they could by showing off like the graphic, like the mural, as the aunt tells the story of of Talo and how they need to protect the gate. They make the story as interesting as possible and get an actress who does a really good job at making the story interesting, but it is like a quite long drawn out like story telling us this backstory in the middle of the movie, which I feel is like where it starts to drag on a little bit, because it's like they need to tell us this information so that we understand what's going on, but but they have to tell us so much information.
So I actually understand what you're saying now that you kind of pointed out. Here's where I kind of think of it. I think this movie has delivered such like it's very much like, okay, movies, start, we actually get action scenes right in the beginning of the movie. Basically, the movie is like within 10 minutes, you got action scene. And then we have a lull. Like, and then we have like some story progression and then action scene. And then we get some story progression. And then we get, again, action scene, and followed right up by another action scene. And then we get from basically the point where they go to the compound, it's, no action. There's the car chase, but that's that is action-y, but it's not like combat action. And then we get them just like going through the forest, which again, there's some action and activity going on there, but not quite the same. And then you get the entire time they're in Talo, where it's like just a bunch of talking, walking around and stuff. So I think the expectation or the pace or what they did with the movie is there's so much action, so much point. That part of the movie doesn't have any action. It's just like them talking and walking around. And so I think that's because your bar is set so high for so much other parts of the movie, that one falls and feels like a lull. But I think it's just simple. And like this movie could have just had like 5 less action scenes, still been an action movie, because I've seen action movies that have like just, like a few good action scenes, and that's, and a bunch of like in between. There are James Bond films where he only like combats like probably 3 or 4 times through the film, and it's just him walking around and interacting with people, the other parts of the movie.
I mean, I don't watch James Bond movies, so.
Yeah, so I mean, like, so I think it's just the movie sets almost such a high bar that there's that moment where there's like no real action or combat happening, and then it's like, okay, boom, huge finish. So you just see this chunk of the film where the action is very dull. There isn't any action, basically.
Yeah.
And so I can understand what you're saying, because you're not necessarily wrong, but I just think it's because the bar set so high that it might seem that way. But I want to point out, and you kind of were maybe agreeing with me or understanding, one of my biggest things about this film, and I noticed it the first time, and I even paid attention to it more the second time, is the failed way that they did the romance quotation marks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I honestly think it was a total. It makes no sense why they ended up together. I mean, I don't know that they like ended up together per se. Even at the end of the movie, they like walked arm in arm, and like there's this sort of suggestion that they're together, but I don't. There's nothing that leads me to believe that they even really want to do that. They give you a couple like hints. They kind of put it in there. They do the thing with the grandma says like, oh, when are you guys going to get married? Right. Okay. So there's like this little cue in the movie that, oh, hey, I guess there's some sort of suggestion. Maybe they should want to be with each other. But like after that, there is almost no moments where I ever see, there's maybe a couple other, but there's hardly ever a real indication that these two want to be more than friends. It just seems like they're just good friends. And I'm like, and I just think to myself, I'm like, I can point out, like, I think Ryan had pointed this out to me before, was like, when she sees him with his shirt off, she's like, whoa, hey, and we get that, okay, that's supposed to be a clear, like, oh, sexual interest potentially, right? Which me and Ryan also talked about this. There is no fucking way you've been friends for 10 years living in San Francisco and you never seen him without a shirt on. You guys just never went to the beach? You just don't do that, right? You just never, like, no way you haven't seen him without a shirt on. But whatever, well, like, and then, the moment when he drops her and he's like, oh, and the moment when she gets like attacked and he defends her and stuff, like, but I would just do that for my friend too. If I had a good female friend and somebody like literally like attacked her, I would also attack them. I mean, you don't have to be romantically interested in a woman to want to defend them or want to protect them and help them, save them, keep them from dying or being harmed. And then again, we just get like no other like any like moments that are really romantic. The closest thing is maybe when she consoles him when in that moment when they're in Talo and he tells her about what he did. But again, no romance. Like that would have been honestly right there would have been like let me actually I'll come back to this what I was going to say right there. But and then we get to the end of the movie, right?
And it's implied that they're together.
Yeah, it's implied that now they like look at each other and they walk arm in arm and stuff. And like we just get this indication like now you're together.
And yet they were incapable of kissing, and if they were together,
why? Yeah, it's like why didn't they kiss? Maybe they're not supposed to be. Maybe that's not the implication. Maybe they're just friends and they just walked arm.
But it feels like that's the implication.
Yeah, it feels like that's what they're trying to get to us. But they didn't give me any reason. Like there's no like why would they just be together now? I just don't get it. And because of that implication. That literally lost me. It made me be like, why did you even try to suggest that if you weren't going to really make it a thing?
And it's actually kind of worse than that because prior to seeing this movie, I had actually already come across a criticism of some films and a tendency within Hollywood films of an emasculation and desexualization of Asian leading men in film. In that, there's like historically speaking, like you were less likely to see a male Asian lead like get the girl and like get like the kissing scene. I believe there was actually a specific situation where there was a Jet Li movie where I think he had a kissing scene with I don't remember who, maybe Halle Berry. And test audiences weren't receptive to it, so they cut it out of the movie.
Yeah, and I had never heard of that before. I didn't know that. And Ryan mentioned that to me when we had sort of talked previously.
At that time, I gave the example of Bruce Lee and I think Enter the Dragon or something like that, where he's the only one of his like friends on the good side who doesn't like spend the night like betting like a woman.
Yeah, and like when he pointed that out, I was like, wow, yeah, this seems like exactly what's happened here. Like if this is some kind of trend, that's a thing that I mean, I've never noticed. It's not something I've necessarily paid attention to, but that's like almost exactly what happened here. They like under sexualized him. Like they could have just made him like a typical. Now, okay, here's actually my point here, right? One, they could just be friends. They don't have to be together, and that would actually be fine. They shouldn't have even tried to imply it. They should just be like, here is my female friend, like sidekick, and that would have been actually more okay. Right? It'd be more okay. They just were like, they're just friends. And that's okay.
But they put the implication there.
Yeah, but they put that implication, right? They definitely try to suggest it lightly at the end. And because they did that, I was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you make it just this weird suggestion, but give us nothing else? It's so weak. And with that in mind, with this trend, apparently, like that thing, I was like, what? Like, now I feel like you clearly actually just did that. Like you really just like desexualized and you wanted to make it less sexy, but like kind of be like, oh, but they are kind of together. So like, so later if they say they're together and they need to have, I don't know, whatever. And that's obviously not like any of the actors' fault. It's just, I don't know why that was done. And here was an easy fix. I actually told Ryan this. I was like, you know how you could have just really simply made it happen? You could have, in that moment when he bears his soul in Talo, right? And it would basically fix everything, right? We could have had these weak indications before, but you go, Sean, like, I feel like we've always been friends and stuff, but I always felt like you were too good for me or something like that. And I could never express to you that I really actually, want something more, blah, blah, blah. And he'd be like, Katie, I almost always felt like I had this darkness that I was hiding. And so I don't felt like because I always had to hide myself, I couldn't be close with you. And they expressed that in that moment. And then, boom, they kiss right there and they show that like, oh, we had feelings, but both of us were hiding for our internal reasons, which would be both their themes, right? He was hiding himself, not being in balance, right? Which is a whole theme that he touches on. And she's like, I'm not realizing my potential. I don't think I'm realizing my potential. So I don't know why you want to be with me. Boom. We reconcile not only both those themes, but then we have actual romance. They could kiss right there or whatever. Or you can even say the kiss, but you could give that like, we are interested in each other and maybe they can't make the final leap. And it's like, oh, I just killed the thing. Boom. Kiss now.
Or here's the other thing. They could have made them friends.
Yeah.
That could have been an option, but then you don't spend the whole movie like pointing out like that you don't set up early in the movie the grandma saying, "Oh, when are you guys getting married?" Because quite frankly, at this point, I did not have that on my mind. I was looking at them. Oh, it's refreshing to just have like friends and stuff in Marvel movies, that they don't always have to be dating. And then they said that, and I was like, oh, so they're going to be a couple at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
And that's like, I had the exact same expectation. I was like, oh, they don't need to be together. Cool. That's fine. You know, like the female doesn't always have to be with the guy. But then they did that one line and was like, again, this isn't accidental. Okay. You didn't just like put it in there because it made sense. All the shit's done for a reason. You put that in there because it was supposed to indicate, oh, them being a couple. Okay. They could be a couple. And him just saying, hey, we're just friends. Okay. So that means that by the end of the movie, it develops into more than that because of blah, 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 blah.
And then they end the movie with like all these like little things that make me feel like they're a couple. And it's just impossible. Like, if they start like the next movies or whatever and they're like figuring stuff out, then like, okay, cool. That actually makes sense now that you put it that way. But like, it's just
here there's no reason they shouldn't have kissed, though. You can be figuring it out but also have this kiss and be like, oh, that kiss was kind of like weird and I know we have feelings for blah blah, but why didn't they kiss? There's no reason they shouldn't have kissed if they're supposed to be together at the end of this movie. If we have the indications, the suggestions of this new interest or whatever, it could have come out because of all these different blah 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 blah. But that was just weak and it was poorly done. And it is like Disney, do better. Like what the fuck? Like you just didn't need to like literally like just flop the romance, or even like, again, just didn't have to be that. It was just stupid. And knowing this little trend thing, I'm like, yeah, Disney must have done this because this is maybe would have made certain groups better. They're like, oh, if they were like together, that wouldn't like pull as well or something. I'm like, no, like I'm actually not okay with it. I wish they either weren't together at all or they were actually really together. You know, like I don't, or I just got to like, you know, like give them the damn kiss. Like seriously, that's all it needed to be, or give a real amount of romance, not fucking kind of maybe a little bit like. I hope everybody got the idea that they were sort of supposed to be together. It's just weak, you know?
Yeah, it's like this movie's for adults. Like, treat people like they're people, that they're adult characters.
I'm just saying, like, bro, Captain America, boom.
He can't kiss.
Hey, Captain America gets the girl. Robert Downey Jr. gets, I mean, he's straight, like, sexualized. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is like, yeah, oh, yeah, sleeping with the reporter and doing this and, oh, yeah, being with... Like why do we not just get it in this one? So it's whatever. I have agreements about that, and that is a lessening of the movie right there.
You know, now that you bring that back up, yeah, that's my largest criticism.
Yeah, like that, and maybe Simu Liu's acting are where I knock off the 2 points that bring us an A-. And there's really nothing else I can even really say too much that's weak in this movie. You know, I think
it's a great movie.
Yeah, I think it's well done. I think the story's good. There's a part of me, this actually doesn't really detract from the movie. There's a part of me, I wish that there was a little bit of explanation about what the 10 rings do, but you just get it. I mean, you see what they're doing. It doesn't need to be like spelled out for us, you know?
I mean, they'll spell it out in Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and all the everything to come. That's all so crazy cool. We got Eternals next, but excited for everything.
Yeah. I have to just say, I want to point out, like, specifically some of the things they do so well in this movie, is this theme. They hit theme so perfectly here. And they, like, again, the themes of balance, of redemption, of, you know, like reconciling with oneself, with raising, you know, reaching your potential, like all these different things. They just really bring a lot of that full circle. They bring it around on those, you know, like, you know, making up your past mistakes, all these things. They just hit all these different points. I feel like, you know, I felt good. I felt like I learned something. I feel like they honor sort of, to a large degree, like what, you know, like Asian American, like, you know, Kung Fu kind of movies are. Like, we definitely get literal, like good depictions of like what we want to see in like a Kung Fu movie. Right. While respecting the, you know, like sort of Asian American, like mythology and incorporating that in a really meaningful way in the movie.
They take a character who was originally called, I believe, Fu Manchu in the original comment.
Yeah, some straight like racist, like the origins of Shang-Chi and the Mandarin stuff are straight like racist as hell.
Yeah, and they turn that character into one of, I'd say, on the better half of Marvel villains easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like a person also with depth, where one, he is basically like, you know, typical villain. He just wanted power, but then it was like, oh, hey, he tried to give that up because he found something better. He found love, family, and then it was taken away from him. And now that we know that he's just driven to be like, when I relinquished my power, I lost the thing I love, so now I can't relinquish it again. And then even at the end, he had an arc too, where at the end it's, now I realized that by like clinging so much to power, I thought I would lose my love again, but I lost the things that, I lost what I still had, though. I couldn't focus on my children, the things that I still loved. And instead of focusing on that, I lost those too. I chose to lose those. And in that moment of redemption, like right in the end, he was able to have that. I recognize that I lost this, but I will choose my family this time. I will not choose to hold my power. I won't choose to like hold these rings and have my, be destroyed. I'll give them to my son. And again, even that, like, yeah, definitely one of the top, half, like upper, Marvel villains.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they just do so many things good. The arcs, the theme, the action was just amazing. So many well choreographed scenes. It's insane. The colors and like so much display of this movie, like the settings are so amazing. They use color a lot. Like in the Golden Daggers thing, we're seeing all these different,
lots of playing between the blues and the oranges.
Yeah. When we see Ta Lo, very bright, beautiful, colorful place. But then we also get this and for the ending scene, we get this play between sort of some like color play as well, like with again, the blue and the orange and him facing off with his father and wearing the red, and this, like we get a lot of good use of the color setting expression. One thing I that didn't pique any kind of I don't even remember to say, so it might have been kind of forgettable, is a lot of music. Though at the very end, it did have a really excellent soundtrack right as it was all culminating. He's flying through the air and finally does the
I like the use of pop music in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a very strong asset to this film. But the score itself, I mean, I'm not one to notice scores in general, but I imagine it's pretty good because I got so caught up into it that I wasn't never thinking about it. And I feel like it definitely used a lot of Eastern melodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this movie just hits so many good points. Honestly, I would say if not for that romance thing, that actually just, I don't know why that got to me so much. That probably took off a little more than just Simu Liu's acting. If that romance thing was done a little better, I would have just said A+ on this movie. I would have said, or maybe I would have said the A, but I'd be like A, airing on A+. Simu Liu's acting is not actually, again, it's not so bad. It's just something I noticed. I would have wanted more expression.
For me, the pacing would still keep it at an A if that relationship thing wasn't there. But I mean, it would be hard to say that it wasn't an issue.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I really like this movie. It was good. They did a good job, great job, Marvel, except for when you dropped the ball on that one specific thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I do want to say again, I really dig the dragon in this movie. I don't know what it is, but seeing dragons.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was awesome. So, yeah, but I don't know. There's much else that I have to say necessarily. I mean, I think I've given all my lauds and all my takeaways.
Well, I kept bringing up the dragon and I couldn't remember why. And it's because I also just want to address that this is the first fantasy. We've gotten hints of it with the Doctor Strange magic, but this is dragons and mythological creatures. So this makes me very intrigued in the direction of Marvel going forward and the inclusion of true fantasy.
Yeah, which the dragon could just be an alien, technically, but whatever.
I hope not.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if that's it for you, that's it for me.
Yeah. That's it for me.
Awesome. Well, until next time, folks, this has been Robert
and Ryan.
Have a good one.